Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, for your stewardship of this House during this year, and all the staff of the House, the clerks, catering staff, ushers, and everybody who make our task doable. I also want to record our appreciation for the work of the media. And in a world where the media is under stress in many places, the actual presentation of the workings of democracy is really important, and to do that in a fair way. And I want to wish all the colleagues in this House and in the other House a very happy Christmas. Taoiseach, today marks just 100 days until Brexit. The UK and European Commission are stepping up preparations for a no-deal Brexit. Our government does not appear to be equally prepared. Our ports handled 53.3 million tonnes of goods in 2017. 29% of that, 15.5 million tonnes of goods, was carried on roll-on, roll-off trucks and trailers. Only 3 ports in Ireland handle roll-on, roll-off: Cork, Dublin and Rosslare Europort. Rosslare Europort handled just under 12% of all freight vehicles and trailers entering Ireland. Additionally, Rosslare handled 1/3 of all passenger cars entering and leaving Ireland last year. We have a national ports policy under which we have 5 ports of significance. Dublin, Cork, Shannon Foynes are Tier 1 ports. Waterford and Rosslare Euroports are currently classified Tier 2. Shannon and Waterford deal in bulk goods, but higher value imports and exports tend to arrive in lorries, which is why roll-on and roll-off is so important. In the context of Brexit, the need for an upgrade of Rosslare is even more obvious and urgent, a point I've been stressing for the last 2 years. The previous government improved motorway access to the port, but we now need to invest an awful lot more. For over 2 years, I've argued that we need to make Rosslare Europort a Tier 1 port. There's a massive risk of putting all our eggs in one basket, with Dublin Port taking the vast bulk of trucks and lorries. We've seen that a single incident in the Dublin Port tunnel can block the Port of Dublin, stop it operational. Traffic congestion in Dublin and on the M50 is already problematic. We've likewise seen a storm, adverse winds for an hour or two can close the port. In today's globalised economy, we rely on just-in-time imports for manufacturing and construction. Exports are vital to the survival of our economy. It's essential that we expand our port strategy so that we're ready to weather the storm that a potential no-deal Brexit could visit upon us. There is every likelihood of delays and extra costs in using the British land bridge in any Brexit scenario, but particularly so in a no-deal scenario. We now hear that Irish ferries may not provide services to Rosslare in 2019, which is frankly, in the context of all I've said, unbelievable. The Dublin-Cherbourg route adds 4 hours to the crossing time, and time is money for hauliers. So, my 2 questions. Will the government undertake to ensure that Rosslare Europort is enhanced, not diminished, as a strategic asset in the context of Brexit? And what specifically will the government do to ensure that ferry operators operating out of the port of Rosslare are enhanced in 2019 and not diminished?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Our Brexit contingency planning, both for the central case scenario, which is a deal, and the no-deal scenario, requires that upgrading works be carried out at Dublin Airport, Dublin Port and Rosslare Europort, in recognition of the fact that it is a major national asset, a port that can be used as an alternative to Dublin, and a port through which there is a lot of trade between Ireland and the rest of the European Union, and indeed the UK. We'll be, hopefully in the next couple of days, be able to disclose some more information about our particular plans for Rosslare and the area around Rosslare in terms of planning for Brexit for both scenarios. There has been, as Deputy Howlin has acknowledged, a major investment in road infrastructure, which has been of the benefit to the port. Both the N11 and, of course, Enniscorthy and New Ross, which will be completed in 2019. So, Oilgate not done yet, but is going to planning. So we're continuing the work which you helped to initiate in terms of improving road access to Rosslare and to Wexford more generally. So that's being done as well. In terms of the decision by Irish Ferries to consider moving the WB8s to a Dublin-Cherbourg route as opposed to Rosslare-Cherbourg in 2019, I have to say this is a decision which is disappointing for the southeast of the country. Minister Griffin is in contact with them already, as other ministers will be, and we are asking the company Irish Ferries to reconsider their decision to move that route, both because of Brexit, because of the negative impact on tourism in the southeast, and also because of our decision to support and develop Rosslare. We do acknowledge it is a commercial decision, and Irish Ferries currently claims that it can grow the numbers travelling between Ireland and France with this change. Decisions are driven by demand, and the company argues that there is greater demand on a Dublin route than on a Rosslare one. The ship in its capacity will still be operating between Ireland and continental Europe, albeit from Dublin instead of Wexford. And the route from Rosslare has to date been a seasonal 3 times a week service, with the majority of traffic being tourist cars, as well as some freight.
Firstly, accept on the record of the House that we do need to have diversity in port access to the continent, that we need to strengthen direct links from Ireland in the context of Brexit to continental Europe. Secondly, you recall, Taoiseach, when I asked you after the publication of your document Investment 2040, why there wasn't a cent at that time allocated to Rosslare, when there was $1 billion investment expected in Dublin Port, 140 million in Foynes Shannon, and 80 million plus in Cork. And your response to me on the record of the House was they didn't ask. Now, subsequent to that, Irish Rail have indicated they're going to invest 15 million, a pale sum compared to the other port investments. So can I ask you, will you ensure that we have diverse access points to ensure that goods entering and leaving this state in the context of Brexit have a choice and a variety, and that we won't be putting all our dependence on a potentially congested port in Dublin, dependent on the M50 and the Dublin Port Tunnel?
I agree absolutely that we need diversity in port access in Ireland. We have a very successful, very well-performing port in Dublin, but there are other ports too, and they are expanding. Cork, for example, has major expansion plans that are underway. Shannon Foynes, a deep water port in the west of the country as well, and Rosslare. So I agree with you on that particular point. It is important to point out, of course, and factual to point out, that the investment that is happening in Dublin Port, in Shannon Foynes Port, in Cork, is not being funded directly by the taxpayer or the Exchequer. These are commercial semi-state companies. They borrow money, they develop the port, and they repay the loan. And they repay the loan using the charges that they charge people for using the port, and that's the way these work. So it's not that the taxpayers' money or government money is being given to Dublin, Cork and Foynes and not to Rosslare. It's that these ports, Dublin, Cork, Shannon Foynes, are so commercially successful that they can fund the infrastructural developments out of the fees that they charge the port users, and the same applies in Dublin Airport, for example. Rosslare is complicated. There is a 15 million upgrade planned, as you know. It is run by Irish Rail, which is, of course, a railway company predominantly, not a port operator, and I think that's suboptimal, but it's not actually owned by Irish Rail. It's owned by a very strange entity, the name of which I forget, but would require primary legislation, not just here but also in Westminster, to change.
Thank you.